The next morning was Angelo's first day working at A to Z Video. I almost expected him to no-show, but he arrived right on time. "Where'd you park?" I asked him when he came in the door. "You don't want to park under Sensei's balcony. At least twice a year, one of his students pukes over the railing." He looked amused by that but shook his head. "Don't own a car." "You don't drive?" I asked in surprise. "I don't own a car," he said again as if the distinction was important. "Don't need one. Only live 2 blocks away. My other job's 4 blocks over. Grocery store between here and there." He shrugged. "Easier to walk." "What about in the winter?" I asked. He gave me that annoyingly cute lopsided smirk. "Like I said, man, easier to walk." The door opened, and Ruby walked in. Angela was only a few steps away from her, and she headed for him, with her arms out like she was going to hug him. His reaction was completely unexpected. He practically bolted. He backed away from her so fast he tripped over his own shoes and ran into the movie display behind him. I thought for a second the whole thing would tip over. It stayed standing, but at least a dozen movies hit the floor. Stuck against the shelves with no way to back up farther, Angelo stood frozen like the metaphorical deer in the headlights as Ruby grabbed his shoulders. He looked terrified, and I fought hard to keep from laughing. "You have positive energy all around you," she said to him matter-of-factly. "I could feel your light through the walls of the store. You're a bringer of life." He stared at her in mute shock, and she patted his cheek with her wrinkled hand and then turned and walked back out. He looked over at me with huge eyes and asked breathlessly, "Who the fuck was that?" "The neighbor. She owns the bookstore." "She crazy?" There wasn't even a hint of humor in his voice. "It's a distinct possibility," I said, smiling. He didn't smile back. Who would have guessed the punk with the attitude problem was afraid of little old ladies? It was too funny for words. It actually took him a minute to get himself back together. He straightened up and took a couple of deep breaths, then shook his head as he started to pick up the movies that had fallen off of the shelf. "Puking kids, a psychic lady, and a head shop. You're surrounded by weirdos, Zach." Like I didn't know that already.